Imagine the year 4023. Future archaeologists are excavating in New York and stumble upon the Empire State Building. What could this be? Of course, an ancient tomb, and surely tens of thousands of slaves were involved in its construction, bearing bricks and metal on their backs. This sounds absurd, as we know this skyscraper's actual purpose and structure. However, American researcher Greg Braden believes that modern science holds similar misconceptions about the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. He claims that the technologies of that time just wouldn't have been capable of erecting such massive structures. Besides, up to the present day, no one has managed to create an architectural complex that could rival the Egyptian pyramids. Let's try to unravel how the ancient Egyptians built them and whether a modern architect could replicate this process under today's conditions. Only then can we discover what the Egyptian pyramids are actually hiding. The dimensions of the pyramids, built over 4.5 millennia ago, continued to astonish modern scientists. The first question arises, how did they process the construction material back then? After all, the ancient Egyptians not only managed to craft blocks of perfect shape and smoothness from colossal stones weighing 2.5 tons, but also transported them to varying heights during construction. Considering the fact that initially the pyramids appeared quite different from what we see today, it was an immensely intricate task. The outer layer of the pyramids was covered with perfectly polished white limestone, similar to marble. The multi-layered limestone blocks we see today are nothing more than preliminary finishing. The internal chambers of the pyramids were crafted from granite blocks weighing from between 20 to 35 tons each. Scholars struggle to explain how the Egyptians managed to masterfully shape these colossal granite masses. Nevertheless, a few theories have emerged. Some archaeologists claim copper chisels or saws were used to cut the stone. Hypothetically, this technique might have been used to carve rectangular blocks. Yet, how do we account for the exact cuts and sharp angles without any trace of tools? Here, researchers remain divided. Some suggest the Egyptians used a water surface as a level. To reduce friction and heat generation of tools, they also worked the stone underwater. Others argue that a wooden level, paint, and rope were used to measure angles and detect uneven surfaces. Builders employed 3 perfectly straight wooden sticks of equal length for this purpose. A rope was tied to the tops of 2 sticks, and workers would stretch it by placing the sticks on the stone surface. The 3rd stick was used for surface inspection, inserted between the stone and the taut rope. If the stick caught on the rope, it indicated an irregularity on that part of the stone. This was marked with paint to be smoothed down later. However, if this were the case, laborers would have had to grind the stone for an excessively long time to achieve such smoothness. But what if the blocks constituting the pyramids were not solid stones? Researcher Greg Braden declared in his interview that these massive rectangular blocks are, in fact, artificial. The scholar disclosed that in 1989, researchers drilled into one of the pyramid blocks to extract rock samples. Upon seeing the analysis results, they were taken aback. If these were genuinely natural limestone blocks, they should have exhibited layers and fossils. However, the analysis revealed that the entire block was homogeneous. It also harbored air bubbles, insect remnants, and even human hair. Moreover, when chemical analysis was conducted, chemical substances not found in nature were discovered. Thus, they concluded it was an artificial material. Braden believes that the blocks were crafted in multiple stages. First, stones were mined from nearby limestone quarries. Then, they pulverized and blended it with a high-tech oxide to make the mixture pliable. This ready mixture was poured into special molds where it solidified. what if we tested this theory under modern conditions? In that case, the rapidly setting mixture would be poured into specialized molds directly on the construction site. Besides, using new technologies, such as synthetic acrylic stone, could significantly reduce the weight of these blocks. This theory sounds plausible, and presumably, builders could have accomplished this task thousands of years ago. But the catch is that when scientists analyzed the blocks, they discovered that ancient Egyptians employed a distinct recipe for their creation. The exact composition has remained unidentified until now. This mixture was so unique that even Saddam Hussein tried to get his hands on it. According to Greg Braden, in 1990, before the U.S. military intervention in Iraq, Saddam Hussein reached out to an American sculptor whose name the researcher refrains from disclosing. The artist almost unraveled the technology's secret, which was employed in constructing the Egyptian pyramids. He mixed a powder based on natural stone with epoxy resin. Saddam Hussein intended to use this recipe to fortify his bunkers. The U.S. government took preemptive action and officially prohibited the sculptor from sharing his patented technology with anyone, making it classified. But even if we assume that ancient Egyptians indeed cast these gigantic bricks from a special mixture, how did they transport them? After all, there are still questions lingering around the official version of events. In 1989, a group of American scientists gathered in Egypt to recreate the Great Pyramid of Giza. However, they faced a problem. Their equipment couldn't lift the giant blocks. The researchers turned to the Caterpillar Tractor Company. They were supposed to create a special device to move enormous stones. However, after 6 months, they still could not accomplish the task. And let me remind you, mainstream science claims that the ancient Egyptians built manually. Archaeologists have two versions of how this happened, and one of them suggests that the pyramids were created using water. Researchers believe special channels were built around the pyramid's perimeter, allowing the stones to float downstream. Floats made of cedar wood or inflated animal skins were attached to the blocks, keeping them on the water's surface. At the pyramid's top platform, there was a pool that they moved upwards during construction. To move the blocks up from the trench to the apex, builders used a series of gates. This allowed them to easily direct the stones in the right direction. Let's assume this theory is accurate. However, to build the pyramid, blocks weighing from 2.5 to 70 tons were used. 1 cubic meter of air can keep a granite block weighing 1 ton afloat. To move a 20-ton block along the channel, the ancient Egyptians would have needed 20 of these floats. Considering that, as scientists assume, ancient Egyptian builders used animal skins and wood for this purpose. They just wouldn't have had enough resources to make the necessary number of these buoyancy aids. Now, if we're going along with the most popular theory, it says that a bunch of workers supposedly lugged stones across the desert using ropes and sleds. And not too long ago, scientists came up with the idea that the sand was wetted to reduce friction. Wet sand made dragging those stones much easier, and we've spotted this practice in some of those old wall paintings. It's believed that they built a specialized ramp to hoist those blocks up to the top. Seems like this is right up our architect's alley. Let's imagine we've got all the gear we need except for the hoisting cranes. So let's try to build the ramps using an excavator. To get these sand structures in shape, we have to wet the sand. And to slide those blocks along the ramps, we can use winches. It doesn't sound all that complex, but our architect decided to stop the construction because even with all the fancy gear, building these ramps is a real chore and eats up way too much time. That winch cable needs to be swapped out pretty often because it snaps under the weight, and those ramps are constantly crumbling. It's truly baffling how those ancient Egyptians managed to build pyramids back then. They didn't even have winches or excavators. A similar experiment was attempted by Japanese scientists back in 1978. They aimed to prove that ancient Egyptians constructed pyramids through primitive means, shaping stones with chisels and moving and placing them using ropes. Their experiment aimed to build a 20-meter pyramid using terraces and ramps. Each block had to weigh 4 tons. 100 Egyptian laborers joined in the building. Yet, even modern knowledge couldn't assist the experimenters. They discovered that chiseling 4-ton stones required immense physical strength and far too much time. So they had to scale back their pyramid's height from 20 to 10 meters, and the stone's weight from 4 to just 1 ton. Besides, the researchers began utilizing power saws during the stone-cutting process. This obviously deviated from the experiment's main objective, demonstrating the possibility of constructing such an object using primitive tools. Yet, they did not halt their efforts. Later on, the team found that primitive watercraft struggled with transporting the stones across the Nile. Consequently, scientists employed modern flatboats. When the stones reached the shore near the pyramid, about 50 laborers managed to move a single stone just a few centimeters. Then the decision was made to construct an entire railway. Small carts rode on it, each carrying a single stone. Later on, the researchers again deviated from the experiment's conditions by using large lifting cranes. And to place the blocks in their designated spots, they even got a helicopter up into the air. Despite managing to construct a 10-meter pyramid next to the Giza pyramids, the experiment turned out to be unsuccessful by all standards. So, ancient Egyptians may not have been able to build pyramids without powerful cranes, railroads, and helicopters. But maybe we're looking for the answer in the wrong place. Perhaps the answer to how the pyramids were built will reveal itself if we find out why they were actually built. What if the pyramids aren't exactly what they seem to be? The Great Pyramid of Giza is believed to be the tomb of the Egyptian pharaoh Khufu, who lived in the 26th century BC. But there's one problem with this assertion. Inside the Great Pyramid, neither mummies nor other artifacts typically found in ancient Egyptian tombs have ever been discovered. Valuable jewelry, lavish artworks, household items believed to be needed by pharaohs in the afterlife, none of those were there. But if the Great Pyramid of Giza isn't actually a tomb, then what the heck is it? Scientists are increasingly inclined to believe that the Great Pyramid could have been an observatory. However, for a long time it wasn't clear how its internal structure corresponded to this function. The answer was found by English astronomer Richard Proctor in 1883 when he studied the works of the ancient Greek philosopher Proclus. Proctor concluded that the Great Pyramid served as an astronomical observatory before it was even finished. The vast gallery opening to the south served as a giant telescope, and the pyramid's apex could have been used by priests to observe the movement of celestial objects. But why would the ancient Egyptians build such a massive observatory and invest so much effort into it? In the late 19th century, English engineer William Siemens suggested that the pyramids had a different, more practical purpose. The Great Pyramid was once covered with blocks of white limestone, which has excellent electrical insulation properties. Beneath these blocks, the passages and tunnels of the Great Pyramid were constructed with granite, and granite in turn is an excellent conductor of electricity. This is quite puzzling as granite isn't naturally found in the area, so the 8,000 tons used to build the pyramid had to be transported all the way from a quarry situated 800 kilometers away from the city of Giza. In addition, the pinnacle of the Great Pyramid was crowned with an enormous gilded stone, and gold, as scientists assert, is one of the most conductive materials on Earth. These facts have led some researchers to believe that the Great Pyramid of Giza was nothing less than a colossal power station, and this isn't just speculation. In 2018, a scientific study published in the Journal of Applied Physics revealed that the Great Pyramid could concentrate electromagnetic energy within its internal chambers and beneath its base. It could have been designed to conduct electricity through them to the golden capstone and release it outward. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? After all, according to historical records, the knowledge of electricity emerged thousands of years after Egypt's Golden Age. How can we then assert that the Great Pyramid was an electrical power station? Or is this still possible? In the 4th century, Syrian philosopher Iamblichus wrote about his experience exploring the tunnels beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. He described that upon approaching one of the underground chambers, a long tube on the wall lit up by itself. As he got closer, the light intensified. At that moment, his slaves became frightened and fled, and when Iamblichus touched the tube, it went out. You must admit this description closely resembles how a touch lamp works, yet such devices only emerged in our homes relatively recently. So how do we explain the depictions resembling light bulbs in ancient Egyptian frescoes and reliefs? It seems that the ancient Egyptians knew more about electricity than we think, and scientists have even found evidence of this. In the depths of the Great Pyramid, researchers discovered 2 small tunnels measuring about 20 by 20 centimeters. Initially, scientists believed that these were just ventilation shafts. But in 1993, German engineer Rudolf Gottenbrink created a special robot to navigate the narrow shafts inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu. The robot was equipped with a remote control, hydraulic-driven tracks, a powerful light, and a camera. The research team sent it into one of the pyramid's tunnels, where it came across a stone door with a metallic handle. This was quite strange, as metal wasn't found anywhere else in the pyramid. Progress beyond the door was only possible in 2002. By then, a team from the USA managed to drill through the door. They found a chamber behind it, blocked by a large stone. What was inside this chamber remained a mystery. Only in 2011 did researchers manage to peer into the room using a robot with a slender, long camera. The images they captured left scientists shocked. Red hieroglyphs, unknown symbols, and diagrams are drawn everywhere. Scientists assume these hieroglyphs are ancient blueprints explaining in detail how to use the Great Pyramid as an electricity generator. Researcher of ancient Egyptian culture, Christopher Dunn, claims that the pyramid's very shape holds immense significance, and modern physicists have even developed a blueprint for what's called a pyramid generator. To build a 20-meter-tall pyramid generator, our architect needs a steel base with an aluminum plate placed at its bottom. In the center of the pyramid, a 17-meter steel column is needed, and beneath the apex, there must be a large metal bolt. In the Great Pyramid of Khufu, a massive gilded stone fulfilled this bolt's function. According to the instructions, the inner layer of the pyramid should be made of a material that conducts electricity. Aluminum sheets work best. The exterior of the pyramid should be covered with an insulating material. Ancient Egyptians used limestone blocks for this, but plywood sheets will work for us. The remaining space must be filled with sand, and your pyramid generator is ready. If you connect a multimeter to the pyramid's base and the aluminum plate, the tester will display a voltage of 230 volts. This would be enough to power any household electrical device. So in theory, the Great Pyramid of Giza could indeed be a massive generator. But then what's the purpose of similar structures around the globe? And what if they're united, not just by visual resemblance, but something more? Scientists from the University of California plotted all known pyramids on a map and discovered they're roughly aligned in a straight line. And some of of these ancient structures even perfectly replicate the arrangement of the Egyptian pyramids. Much like in Giza, the Mexican city of Teotihuacan has three main pyramids: the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, the Pyramid of the Sun, and the Pyramid of the Moon. Just like in Giza, their layout isn't symmetrical. Two structures are facing each other, and third is intentionally shifted to the side. But could all of this be a mere coincidence? Greg Braden suggests that the architects of these pyramids might have been from a shared ancient civilization, meaning they possessed similar knowledge. They could construct similarly complex structures. But how can we explain that pyramids have even been spotted from space? UFO researcher Scott Waring reported in his blog that he discovered a gigantic three-sided pyramid while examining photos of Mars. According to the researcher's conjecture, one side of the pyramid appears smooth and still has its original covering, while the other two are heavily damaged by extreme winds. This finding inspired Waring to theorize that the pyramids were constructed by extraterrestrial beings. But really, what other version of events would you expect from a UFO enthusiast? But another discovery prevents us from entirely discarding the notion of pyramids having extraterrestrial origins. In 2018, researcher Joe White claimed he stumbled upon the remains of a Sphinx statue on Mars. White carefully analyzed the photos and concluded that the Martian Sphinx statue could have been over 60 meters long. That's almost the same as the dimensions of the Egyptian Sphinx in Giza, and the coincidences don't end there. The first photo shows three mountains on the surface of Mars. The second photo features three pyramids on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. They perfectly match each other's arrangement. But the similarity isn't just limited to the Egyptian pyramids. The Martian complex's layout resembles the arrangement of the Mexican pyramids in Teotihuacan. Interestingly, while exploring this finding, NASA specialists ignored the fact that all supposed Martian civilization monuments are situated almost on the same parallel, 40 degrees north latitude. This is quite a narrow belt, and Joe White decided to compare it to a similar one on our planet. He was in for another astonishing discovery. The most densely populated major cities of modern Earth's civilization are concentrated between 40 and 50 degrees north latitude. White believes that all the pyramids on Earth, and also including those found on Mars, are part of a massive infrastructure. If so, why didn't the pyramid creators stick to just one planet? Why did they relocate to Earth? While searching for answers, researchers came up with another theory. What if the entire course of our evolution was under the watchful eye of an extraterrestrial race? Scientists speculate that certain beings might have come from another planet bringing advanced technology. Supporters of this theory claim they've found real evidence in ancient Egyptian frescoes and scrolls. These depictions indeed feature objects that strikingly resemble modern devices like lamps. Researcher Greg Braden argues that official history has deceived us for centuries. It seems that the Great Pyramid was constructed using such intricate technologies that we still can't decipher them today. Scientists are left scratching their heads over where ancient Egyptians acquired such skills and techniques. But even assuming that humanity had similar knowledge over 4,500 years ago, why didn't these skills persist throughout all of our history and reach us today? Braden has an answer to this question also, and according to him, a grim fate may await us. According to Greg Braden's theory, there are 5 cycles lasting 5,125 years each, and each of these periods always concluded with a massive catastrophe for humanity. 10,000 years ago, as we emerged from the last ice age, a comet collided with the Earth. According to Braden, this event marked the end of a great advanced civilization that existed on Earth. As the scientist proposes, its remnants eventually evolved into 5 distinct civilizations that coexisted. This is why they shared similar mathematics, architecture, cosmology, and other sciences. The Egyptian pyramids could well be a legacy of a sophisticated civilization that didn't survive another massive catastrophe. Greg Braden asserts that the year 2012 marked the end of the 5th and final cycle. Coincidentally, before 2012, the Empire State Building was regarded as the tallest building in New York, and until 1971, it was the tallest building in the world. Just like the pyramids in their time, it was considered the pinnacle of architectural achievement. Perhaps a few thousand years from now, some future architect will puzzle over the purpose of the renowned New York skyscraper, and much like the case of the pyramids, they'll find a plethora of mysteries and discrepancies. Do you think future generations will believe we buried our rulers in skyscrapers? Or will they assume that people used the tall spire of the Empire State Building to attract lightning and charge their smartphones? Share your thoughts in the comments.